Committee on Parole is called back to order. The time is 10:58. Our next case is Mr. Jacob Griffith. Mr. Griffith, if you would please give us your full name and DOC number.
Jacob Ray Griffith, 503310.
Mr. Griffith, let me explain our process to you. First, I'm going to read some information into the record, and then the board is going to conduct a parole interview with you. At the appropriate time, we will let those persons who've indicated they have a desire to speak to have their input. Speaking here today on your behalf is your mother, Sandy Santos Griffith, and your father, Billy Griffith. Also here in opposition is Miss Rachel Gross, who is the victim's mother. At the end of the hearing, you'll have an opportunity to address the board, say whatever it is you'd like to say, make a brief statement to the board, and then we'll vote. You understand our procedure?
Yes, sir.
This is Jacob R. Griffith, DOC number 503310, date of birth December the 8th of 1986. He's a first-class offender. He has a parole eligibility date of March the 2nd of 2024. He is not eligible for good time. He has a full-term date of August the 14th of 2027. He is currently serving a 23-year sentence for the charge of forcible rape. Is that fairly accurate, Mr. Griffith?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Griffith, your case has been assigned to me, so I'll begin the interview process, okay? Mr. Griffith, how old are you, sir?
I'm 36,
And how long have you been in prison on these charges?
since 2004,
Okay, so how long is that?
almost 20 years,
20 years?
almost.
Not quite 20 years?
Yes, sir.
Tell me a little bit about your educational background, Mr. Griffith. How far did you go to school?
I went to the 10th grade in high school, and then I dropped out and was homeschooled and got a GED through homeschool.
Now, you were, by my calculations, you were approximately 17 years old at the time of this offense. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Let's talk a little bit about who you were then. Were you still in school or had you dropped out already?
I'd already dropped out.
Okay, and were you working? What were you doing?
I was working for, I had a couple of jobs. I was working for Chick-fil-A, which was, my mom got me the job there. And before the incident, I was working at Taco Bell.
And who were you living with?
My mom and dad.
Who else lived in that household?
My cousin, his wife, or baby's mama, and the child.
Mr. Griffith, did you ever have a drug or alcohol problem?
No, sir.
You ever used drugs at 17? You hadn't tried marijuana or anything like that?
Because I seen what it did to my family.
Tell me a little bit about that. What do you mean you're seeing what it did to your family? What is that?
Just the drug use, how it affected my family, alcohol wise and drug wise. You know,
People in your family were alcoholics?
Yes, sir.
Like who?
I had cousins, uncles, you know, they drank. Mainly my younger cousins, the older ones that are older than me, but you know, they were the ones that did a lot of the drinking.
Tell me what happened in this incident. Tell me what you did, and to the best of your knowledge, why?
I was give me 1 second. I'm a little nervous.
Take your time.
The morning of the offense, I was babysitting my younger nephew, and I was watching a secular movie, and he came in, and some oral things started happening, and then it progressed to other sexual things.
How many times did you molest this young boy?
Just that once.
I'm sorry?
Just that once.
Just the one time?
Yes, sir.
And what prompted you to do that?
I don't know, stupidity.
Well, you've taken sex offender treatment.
Yes, sir.
You took you took three phases, and at some point during the fourth phase, you were enrolled. I don't know whether you completed that program or not. Did you actually complete the fourth phase?
Yes, sir. I have my certificate.
All right.
220.
Okay. So tell me what you learned in the sex offender training that might explain what you did and why you did it.
I believe that was because I was in a negative emotional state and I didn't have a positive peer group around me to, how can I put it? I didn't have that platform to be able to talk to somebody, you know, to reach out for help, you know, and I believe that led me to commit my offense.
Now, you were watching pornographic videos.
Yes,
How long had you been doing that? Not just that day, but how long had you been watching these pornographic videos?
for a while.
Now, throughout your sexual offense treatment and training, did you gain any insight as to why you were doing that and what might have led you to do this to this young boy?
I felt like it was a trigger. That's what had triggered me to do that. I mean, I don't know why it happened, but that's something that I never in a million years would have thought would happen, you know, and I see that was why I committed my offense. It was that porn was my trigger. That was what set me off. And going through this class, I've learned that is one of my triggers that I have to stay away from. I have to, because I don't ever want to create another victim like that. I never want to, ever.
Now, have you learned or have you come to grips with the fact that this was an 8-year-old child?
Yes.
What insight have you learned about that?
As far as
Why you did what you did and how you'll be able to control it in the future?
using the sex offender ROCO scale, I know that as long as I have supervision or I'm around people who are adults and I don't have access to victims unsupervised, that won't ever happen.
Is it fair from what you're telling me, is it fair to say that you believe you need to be supervised and make sure that young children aren't around you anymore? Otherwise, you might do this again. Is that what I'm hearing?
To a point, yes, sir. But that's, for me to do this again will never happen. That is something that I will not ever do again.
And why can you say
Supervision or
that?
not? You know,
How can you tell me that? What is it in your training, in your treatment, in the time you've been in prison, that I should be comfortable with that statement? I mean, that's a statement, I'll never do it again. We hear that a lot from a lot of people. Why should I believe that?
because when I first came to prison, I didn't know nothing. I didn't understand myself. I didn't know who I was. And the years that I've been here and the classes that I've gone through, you know, they've taught me who I am and how to avoid things and how to look at an opposite side of a conflict or whatever the situation may be. And that, yeah, I committed an offense. I committed a crime that is just horrendous, but I'm not that person anymore. I'm not that kid who created havoc, you know, that ruined somebody else's life. Somebody who was supposed to look up to me for security and safeness. I ruined that, but I'm not that person anymore. I'm not a child like I was. I've grown. And I've learned from my mistakes. I've learned from other people, listening to other people who are older and wiser than me.
Mr. Griffith, let me ask you this. Now, you were interviewed by the SOAP panel, the sex offender assessment panel, right? You remember that? There's an interview with you.
Oh, Mr. Burgos, yes, sir.
And when was that interview? Do you remember? Not long ago, was it?
No, I don't remember.
Well, in that interview with the panel, you denied having done this. You remember that? Remember telling them not long ago that you didn't do this? And then you changed your mind and said, oh, yeah, I did do it. You remember that?
No, sir.
That interview was May the 1st, Mr. Maribel.
Of this year, right?
May the 1st of this year, yeah.
Yeah, I've got, I'm looking at the assessment, Mr. Griffith, 40. It said that you were hesitant in answering questions, and then you denied ever having done this. And then all of a sudden, you said that, yes, you did. So you don't remember that comment?
No, sir.
I'm going to read you the statement. He states that the charges against him were totally fabricated, and he was forced into a false confession by a detective while under duress. You don't remember saying that?
No, sir.
Why would someone write that in a report? Tell me what other programs that you've taken while you've been in prison that would help you.
I've taken anger management. I've taken the re-entry class. I've taken 2 VOTEX, Celebrating Recovery, Cleanse and Stream, faith-based, the faith-based cheer program, and Kairos.
Now, Celebrate Recovery is primarily a substance abuse type program, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
And I understand that you were a mentor and a facilitator of that program. Is that right? What did you learn? I mean, you told me you don't have a substance abuse issue. You never did drugs or drinking. Tell me what you learned and what, as a facilitator and as a mentor in Celebrate Recovery. How does that sort of addiction program affect or relate to you in the crime that you committed?
It teaches you about admittance, about looking to God, or your higher power, whatever that may be, and basically having a support group that's what I always taught in the class, was having that support group. Somebody that you could confide in. You know, being able to admit to yourself and others, you know, that if you've done something, you know, or whatever the case may be, having that confidant to be able to talk to.
You know, Mr. Griffith, a lot of times in substance abuse programs and addiction programs and things like that, one of the things that you know, an addict learns is that they're always an addict. They will always be an addict unless they fight day after day after day. They're going to go back to using drugs, and they're going to go back to using alcohol. You know, you indicated to me earlier about what you learned in substance abuse, in sex offender treatment, that you need to be supervised and you need to be on the alert for all of those things. So those are all things that you learned, or at least they taught you. And then when I asked you, well, do you think it's necessary that you be supervised or you might relapse? And your answer was no, I'm never going to do that again. So I wonder, have you discovered, or do you believe that you have some sort of a sexual addiction? And you were watching pornographic movies, you molested and raped a 8-year-old boy. Do you think that you have some sort of a sexual addiction?
Yes, sir.
So how can you tell me you're never going to do that?
Because
I
I'm gonna
guess
fight
that's
every
my
day not
concern.
to.
I'm sorry?
Because I'm gonna fight every day not to.
So is it fair then, I'll repeat the question I asked you before. Is it fair to think that if you are not strictly supervised and you are in the presence of young children without significant supervision, this could happen again?
The possibility is there, but the answer is no. Because I'm not that person.
Well, I don't know that an addiction goes away. You may not be the same person that you were at 17 years old, but if you have an addiction and you have a sexual addiction, whether it's alcohol, substance abuse, whatever that addiction is, you will always be that addict. Tell me what you've learned about what your crime did to the victims. What are your thoughts on that?
You said, what?
Tell me your thoughts about what effect your crime has had on that then 8-year-old boy.
It's devastating. It's ruined me. It's probably gave him a sense that people who were supposed to care for him and love him and protect him, that he can't trust in people anymore. That, it's something that I could never explain. I don't know. I know that it's ruined me. It's unforgivable.
I keep saying 8-year-old, but I think your cousin was 5 years old.
Yeah.
Tell me what your transition plan is going to be. It's my understanding that you want to go to Texas.
Yes, sir.
Tell me about what your plan would be, or your transition plan.
I have 10 acres in Atlanta, Texas, and I plan on going out there. My mom and dad are gonna come live with me, once we, upon granting of parole, they're gonna move out there. I have a little shop, little house, little 288 square foot house with a shop, and I'm gonna do employment wise, I'm gonna start my own leather business. I've been leather crafting in prison for a couple of years now, and but in order for me to do that, I'm gonna have to get another job somewhere, which, the area around there's full of ranches, farms, ranches, and they're always looking for day workers, always looking for hands, and I'm gonna try to sign in with one or two of those and to make my money so I can start my own business.
Tell me a little bit about your disciplinary record.
I know my last write-up was an unauthorized area.
You've had 46 write-ups, as I understand. Is that fair to say?
I believe that would be correct.
And you had 4 in the last 2-3 years. Why,
Yes,
why so many in the last couple of years?
Just aggravation. I'm not gonna lie to you. We were on COVID protocol, and just when we'd get out, just trying to talk to my friends and being in the wrong place where I'm not supposed to be.
Mostly disobedience. You had 4 disobedience charges, 2 unauthorized areas, general prohibited behavior, and it kind of, I don't know. It seems to suggest to me that you've still got some issues that need to be resolved. That you're in a very strict environment, but you don't follow all of the rules. That bothers me when I am convinced if I vote to let you out, you're going to have to follow a very strict regimen to make sure that nothing like this will happen again. And I'm not sure that you have I don't know if the term is willpower or the ability to be able to do that. Tell me why I'm wrong about that.
I have the willpower, and I have the ability, and I'm that's not an issue at all, Chairman. And
Well, you gotta tell them why that's not an issue. Don't just say it's not an issue. He wants to hear why it's not an issue. You can't just say that it's fine. That's what he's asking. So tell him why it's not an issue.
because I'm gonna be somewhere where I'm not gonna have to have any problems. That's why. It's not an issue. Security, I mean, having authority over me. I've always respected my authority, and
So you say one of your risk factors is you can't be around young children, so you're gonna make sure you're not around young children. That's what you're saying, right?
yes, sir.
You recognize your risk factors and you're not gonna put yourself in that situation.
Yes, sir.
That's what Mr. Marabella is trying to get you to talk about a little bit about your sex offender therapy and the risk factors and things that you can't do to put yourself in certain situations. That's what he's asking you.
Gordon, what can you tell us about Mr. Griffith?
Well, Mr. Marabella's record speaks for itself. He's had some programming. He's had, he has had a few write-ups. The last one you mentioned was unauthorized area. I think he went to a dormitory he wasn't supposed to go to try to talk to somebody, one of his friends or something like that. He's overall he's done fairly well at this institution. He came here from Winfield. He had a bunch of those write-ups he got while he was at Winfield, but he did get his he does have his high school diploma. That was confirmed, and his risk need assessment score is low. And I think it's static 99 with low to moderate. So that's about all I can tell you, Mr. Maribel.
I noticed, Warden, on his institutional report, he was given a fair rating as opposed to a good rating. We see that sometimes. Do you know if there's any significance to that? Can maybe you shed some light on that?
Well, I would think that that was because of the overall number of write-ups he's had and the recent write-up history. And plus he had he was enrolled in the in victim awareness back early this year in March of this year, and he got put out of the program because of poor participation in the victim awareness program. That was noted by Ms. Robinson, so that's probably, those things probably all played a factor in that, Mr. Maribel.
Thank you, Warden. Thank you for your comments. Any questions?
I do, I have. You were, and let's go back to who you were at 17. Do you remember, how did you get exposed to pornography? Do you remember how that came about in your life?
Through my friends.
Were your friends your age or were they older?
I had some older friends. I tend to hang out with older people.
Okay, so it was adults that introduced you to pornography?
Yes, ma'am.
Adult friends?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Were you ever a victim of any kind of inappropriate sexual acts upon you when you were a child?
No, no, ma'am.
Never were. Okay, that's good to hear. That's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank
Sure.
you. Mr. Griffith,
Yes, ma'am.
do you believe you have an addiction to pornography?
An addiction to pornography?
Right, that's what she had.
Yes, ma'am.
You know, although we can put all kinds of conditions on you about, you know, having access to computers, having access to any of your login information, having access to your phones, but you can access pornography. You know, it's pretty easy to access pornography. And if you're addicted to pornography, and if your viewing of pornography is what triggered you to perform these acts on your cousin, how can we be sure that you've dealt with your addiction to pornography? Because I haven't really heard you talk about that. And so what do you want to say?
Well, and this is probably going to sound really funny, but I've been down almost 20 years now. I've never had a Facebook page. I don't even know what that is. If I don't have a computer, if I don't have a cell phone, and I don't have any type of way to access this pornography, which, I mean, granted, yes, ma'am, I can go to the store, I can go, you know, watch it on TV, you know, on channels. But if I fight myself to stay away from what I know is triggering or is a trigger, then I believe, you know, that I'll be able to control myself, because I know what my trigger is. And I know how the devastation and the harm that it's caused. So if I can battle myself daily to stay away from that.
Okay, I want to listen to the words. If I battle myself every day, if I control myself every day, if you're constantly having to battle thoughts, desires, that's not something you can sustain. It's not a matter of willpower. If you have to battle it every day, then you're gonna stumble. That's just the reality. And so I'm concerned about you. I really am concerned about you. I really am concerned that you don't know the extent of your problem. And that you haven't really dealt with, the root cause of your problem. Because if you gotta battle something every day, you're gonna grow weary. And you're gonna give in. And that's just the reality. That's with anything. Food, alcohol, drugs. Every day is a constant battle. Then you're already destined to lose. That's all I have.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson. Now we'll hear from your supporters. We'll hear from your mother, Ms. Sandy Santos Griffith. Ms. Griffith, I don't believe that you need to unmute your microphone for us to hear you. Can you hear me?
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am, we can.
Okay. My name is Sandy Griffith, and I'm Jacob's mother. He's an adopted child that my husband and I have never had children, so he's adopted, and we couldn't have asked for a better child. What is it? I did. Can you hear me
Yes,
still?
ma'am, we can hear you. We can hear you well.
Okay, because my nephew had came in here to see if I was still talking. My husband and I are 74 years old, and he has Parkinson's, and I need my son home. We both do, because I need the help. My husband's 210 pounds, 5'10", and I'm 112 pounds, 4'10". So it's a struggle for me to have to help him each day, to tend to him, to feed him, to dress him. And I just need him home. And I know that he has what he has done. And I know he's remorseful for his actions. My husband can't hardly talk, but he's gonna try to talk to y'all. It's a struggle for him every day. He has to ask me to help him dress, feed him, change him. He's housebound, Every time that we go see Jacob, visit him, it's a struggle for him to get in the car or get in the wheelchair. And his feet swell up real hard. That's a long trip, an hour's trip to go see him. But we try to do the best we can to try to support our child. And we just need him at home, because we don't know how many more days we have left on this world. I have help from the VA that comes in 4 days out of the week, 4 hours, and they help me. But then I have the rest of the day and night by myself to have to tend to him. And it's hard. I don't want to hurt myself trying to lift him up, because I don't know what's going to happen then. If I get down, what's going to happen to him?
Ms. Griffith, we understand your needs and we appreciate your comments. Thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you.
Your husband wish to say something?
How you doing?
Griffith?
Billy Griffith. I'm his dad. Like she said, we adopted him when he was a week old. We couldn't have any children. And we've always had him in church. And I know he's gonna continue going to church when he gets out. And I'm a veteran. And I got Parkinson's disease. And I require a lot of help.
Thank you, Mr. Griffith. I do understand. I appreciate the comments of both you and your wife. Thank you. Now we hear from Ms. Rachel Gross. Ms. Gross.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am, we can hear you very well. Thank you.
Awesome. My name is Rachel. I'm Kane's mom. I wrote some stuff down. I know about addiction, and so you, Jacob, I fight it every day. And for you not to know what addiction even means, or that you have more than one trigger, or understand anything about addiction, all you wanted to learn in the programs that you took there were stuff so you could hurry up and try to get good time off your time sentence. I have known you.
Ms.
I started
Gross, Ms. Gross, I think you're addressing Mr. Griffith.
Oh.
Please address the board and not Mr. Griffith.
I'm sorry. I'll just read what I have written down. That day that Kane had told me what had happened, I thought was the worst day of my life. My baby's crying. He's bleeding. I'm trying to make sure that he's okay. Get him to the hospital, because that's what I was afraid of. I was afraid that he really hurt him. I didn't care about the cops. I didn't care about telling his parents. I wanted to make sure my kid could have kids. He didn't have AIDS. The health stuff. I couldn't even console him. He had to be turned over. When we went to the emergency room, he had to be turned over to the doctors, nurses, caseworkers. We did social workers, detectives, counselors, and psychiatrists. All he wanted me to do was hold him, and I couldn't. To him, he was just getting punished again, all over again. My baby boy's never been the same. What I want this board to know is to not just to look at the crime that he's been committed of, to take all those, it's been 19 years, I know, to the, how many years to the day, 19 years. What happened that day to Kane is still happening, because of monsters like Jacob. They kill our children. It may not be physically, but they kill their soul. They kill our children's innocence. Kane became very detached. He was just this back when, before all this happened. He was just a little boy who was never given the chance to be a kid. He was smart and fun, loving child. We'd like to show everyone how much he loved them. Now he doesn't He didn't even make friends at school because he thought he was different than everybody. Nobody had been through what he had been through. So here's Kane. He was a very outgoing and sweet, kind, loving, playful kid. Becomes a 5-year-old with uncontrollable feelings of shame and guilt, fear. He didn't make friends when that time of his life, and when he was 5. It was so important that companionship in school. His social connection was just not even there.
Ms. Gross, we're gonna need you to wrap up a little bit. We
Okay.
understand what you're saying. We read
Okay.
all of the information that was submitted to us. So if you
Gotcha.
wrap it up pretty quick.
Sure. Kane still doesn't talk about that. And he fights it every day. He's battled drug addiction. One day he hints around that he wants to talk about it. But Jacob just wants to tell you exactly what he thinks you want to hear. And I don't want him to get out anytime sooner than I think he should serve his whole sentence. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gross. We appreciate your comments. Now, Mr. Griffith, is there anything you'd like to say to the panel before the panel votes?
I just want to say that I'm not that same person anymore. I've changed. I've learned. I've grown. I acknowledge what I did was wrong. That it was horrible. And no amount of asking for forgiveness will ever change it. But I respect whatever decision y'all make, be it a grant or be it a rejection. I accept it. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Griffith. And Ruth.
Yes. Mr. Griffith, I want to tell you, this is a very difficult case for me. One, it's because of the nature of the offense makes it difficult, but also the fact that you're only 17 years old when you committed this crime. And sometimes it's easy to say, who a person was at 17 doesn't define who they are today. But I think for someone like you who seems to have this addiction to pornography, who recognizes that you have potential to reoffend if you aren't kept under strict parameters. It's almost like you have to be in prison outside the walls of prison in order for you to not reoffend. And I just don't think that's healthy for you. And I don't think that's a doable thing. Also, while I sympathize with your parents, I think it would be absolutely too much pressure on someone who has been in prison for 23 years, trying to navigate coming back into the world, trying to comply with just all the restrictions that you will face as a child sexual offender. And to have put on your shoulders also the burden, I'll change that word, the responsibility of being a caregiver for your dad. I think it's unrealistic to think that you're going to be able to succeed given all of those pressures that you're going to have. And being a caregiver is a very difficult thing and very stressful. And sometimes when we're under stress, we go back to the thing that gives us comfort. And pornography for you seems to be the thing that gives you comfort. And so for me, I just don't think you're ready today. I think you have some more work to do. I think you still pose a risk to the community. And so my vote today is to deny, but keep working on yourself. Come to grips with, why pornography appeals to you. Because until you get a handle on that, you're never going to have healthy relationships with women, with other people. I just think you have some more work to do. So I encourage you to keep working. Don't, take this as a reason to act out and get more disciplinary write-ups. Demonstrate that you can handle frustration. Demonstrate that you can, get disappointed and yet not fall back into your old. So my vote today is not yet.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson. Mr. Griffith, during the course of my interview with you, I had some significant questions. And those questions still persist. You have had a number of write-ups in the last few years, which suggests to me that you can't control what you think you can control. You were removed from victim awareness, which I think is a significant program, because you didn't participate. You don't know why you didn't participate or why you were unwilling to participate, but you didn't. Your sex offender assessment panel indicates that as recently as May, you denied even doing this. Now, you denied that today. You denied you didn't tell them that, but you did. That's what they wrote down. I don't know why they would write that down if that's not true. I am very, very, very concerned about your ability to control your addiction. I think that you need more work. You've done a lot while you've been in there. There's no question of that, but you need more work. I think things like thinking for a change, participate in victim awareness program, understand what makes you tick, understand what your triggers are. I mean, you and I had that conversation. I mean, one minute you were suggesting, well, this is what I'm going to need to do, but I'm not worried because I'm not going to do it again. And, and Judge Jackson asked you a few questions and you did. You used the words battle every day, fight every day. Well, it's true. You will have to do that, but you can't do that without the proper tools and the proper attitude to be able to do that. So I'm going to encourage you to work on yourself, to look introspectively and try to figure out what it is that caused all of this and what it is that you might be able to do to make sure it doesn't happen again. So my vote likewise would be to deny. Ms. Wise?
Young man, and you are a young man, so you got time ahead of you. You know that. But also going back to that report, when you said that you denied it, the report said you then changed your version of the events and explained that you were guilty of all the crimes in which you were convicted of, and that the facts presented by the police detailing your crime was accurate. But it took a little bit before you admitted. This is going back to that interview a few months ago when you the sex offender interview. And it's important for me is that you own it every room you're in. That's who I was at 17. That's not who I am now at whatever age I am. You got to own it every place you go. That was who I was, but it's not who I am now. Keep your head up high and walk in who you are now. Don't let nobody remind you of who you were. I mean, they can remind you, you just know that that's not who I am today. But own it everywhere. When you're not taking full responsibility everywhere, that's concerning. That's concerning for me. So my vote, I concur with my colleagues, my vote today is to deny the impact of the crime on the victim. The victim had no comments. PNP reached out to the victim, he had no comments. The mother is strongly opposed. You have law enforcement opposition. The age of the victim, the impact of the crime on the victim, all that's concerning. So when you come before the board next time, there will be a next time, own it. Own every bit of it, so that you won't be that person again. Best wishes to you, young man.
Mr. Griffith, you have 3 votes to deny, but encouraging you to work on yourself. So good luck to you.
So